Begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem, 12 lines down from the top of the Yomud, where it says To Shema. So the Gemara here is in the middle of a discussion, a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel regarding the Shavuos of Moed B'Miktsas. The Shavuos of Moed B'Miktsas is when there was a claim, and the person denied part of it and admitted part of it. So what is the minimum amount of money to be chayav for the Shavuos of Moed B'Miktsas? According to Rav, the denial has to be at least in the value of shtei kesef. According to Shmuel, the original claim has to be in the value of shtei kesef, of 2 kesef, but then the denial could be less than that. Now, the discussion over here in the Gemara all revolved around the Mishnah, because there is a case in the beginning of the Mishnah that seems to say very clearly, like Shmuel, because the Mishnah says when a person, like Rav, because the Mishnah says when a person claimed shtei kesef, yesh li biyotcha, and the defendant responds, no, that I don't owe you shtei kesef, I only owe you a pruta. So in such a case, the Mishnah says he's potter. Why is he potter? So according to Rav, the reason is because he didn't deny the amount of shtei kesef. According to Shmuel, though, there's a different shot in the Mishnah. According to Shmuel, the Mishnah here is coming to say a different thing. The Mishnah, when it says shtei kesef, it means dafke, pieces of silver. Since it's pieces of silver, and he admitted to copper, which is not silver, so it's demanding one, it's claiming one type, and admitting to a different type, like tane chitim, v'hoidolei b'sayrin, in such a case you're going to be potter. So now based on this, no, when it's a different type that you made it to, then you're potter. According to one opinion. We'll see the Gemara is going to discuss it soon. Again?
Potter from Shavuos.
Yeah, potter from the Shavuos, correct. So now, well, what he's made it to, he has to pay, for sure. Okay, now the machlokes here between Rav and Shmuel, based on this, revolves around how to learn Pshat in the Mishnah. And B'kitzur, the point here is, according to Rav, when it says in the Mishnah shtei kesef, the meaning of the words in the Mishnah is shaveh, the value. We're talking here all about money, the value of money in this. And therefore Rav says, I have a raya to my opinion that if the denial is not shtei kesef, you'll be potter. Shmuel says the way to learn the Mishnah is not shaveh, not the value of money, but rather it's dafke, it's literal. When it says in the Mishnah shtei kesef, and then it says prute, it means literally silver and copper. And so it's a different subject. It's coming to tell you the halacha that if it's not the same type, you potter. But not regarding the amount of value of money, how much the denial has to be. That's the basis of the machlokes as it is in the pshat of the Mishnah. So now based on this, the Gemara brings from a brayse that will be an indication how to learn our Mishnah. So the Gemara Tashama, so the brayse says, dinner zahuv libiyotcha, a golden dinner. And then he adds, it's a golden dinner that was minted as gold, to be a gold coin. That's what you have in your hands of mine. And the person responds, no, I only owe you a silver dinner. So in such a case, says the Brayse, chayiv, will be chayiv. Now what's the reason why you chayiv in such a case? The reason why Yechayev is because he spelled out clearly that it's not about the fact that it's a bar of gold. It's not the gold. It's a Zahav Zahov. Zahav Zahov means it's a minted coin. It's a minted gold coin. And therefore I say that it's not the quality or the material of the gold that's the main point here. The main point here is the fact that it's a coin. So if he asks him for a more valuable coin and he admits to having for him a less valuable coin, so that's a Moed B'Miktsas, only be chayiv. But that's only because the term zahuv, which means a minted gold coin, was added here. But if you would just simply say to him that you owe me a gold coin, and he admits to a silver coin, what would be in such a case? Shaveh kamalei. In such a case, what is he saying over here? He's saying shaveh, meaning that it's not. He's not coming to ask him for a coin, this coin or that coin. He's coming to ask him for the value, the money that there is in this. Shaveh, it's not about the coin. In such a case, it's only the value of it. So what's the main point that the Gemara is coming to prove over here? The point the Gemara is saying is that just like you see in this brayse, that when he asks him for something, only if he says clearly that it's a zahav zahov, that term when he added zahov, that means that he means a matbeya. He means that all matbeya is one min. Okay, but otherwise, if he doesn't use this term of zahov, So then what is it? It's not the matbeya. He's not emphasizing that it's matbeya. So then what he's asking for is the shaveh, the value, the money value of it. So if so, going back to our Mishnah, that's the main point the Gemara is trying to prove. That in the Braisa here it uses the term zahuv, that means a coin. Mashenkin in the Mishnah, where it does not use this term zahuv. The Mishnah also spoke about a case of coins. In the end of the Mishnah, the Gemara brought before, it's the person asks for a dinar zahav, and he answers a dinar kesef. And the Mishnah did not say zahuv. So what's the pshat in the Mishnah? In the Mishnah, the pshat is not the coins. The pshat in the Mishnah is the shaveh, the value of it, the value of the money. And that's why in the Mishnah it said that he would be chayiv for Maida b'miktsas. So the point that Rav, the Gemara is saying here, that you could bring a raya to Rav from here is that in the Mishnah, it's speaking about value of money. And just like in the Sefer, that's the case. In the Reisha of the Mishnah, the case that I mentioned before, when the claim was shtei kesef, and he denied a pruta, what is it talking about? It doesn't mean a piece of silver, a piece of copper. It means the value. And if it means the value of money, you have a raya from the Mishnah to what Rav said, that if there was no denial of shtei kesef, you're going to be potter. That's what you see here from this Braisa. So again, the point is, because the Braisa pointed out zahav zahuv, that shows that in the Mishnah where it did not use that terminology, it means value, not literal. It doesn't mean literally a coin or literally a piece of silver or a piece of copper. So this proves the way Rav learned our Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Ravashi says, not necessarily. This Braisa is just elaborating and spelling out. And it's telling you that any time there's a claim, and the claim is for a golden dinner, it's like he clearly spelled out and said that it's a golden minted coin. Because you could say that the word dinar zav means literally a coin, a golden coin. And it means and if it's a coin, so then any kind of coin that he admits to is all the same min. It's considered to be the same type because it's all coins. Even without adding zahov. The Braisa said the word zahov, which means dafke, a minted coin. The Braisa is using this expression to teach you that any time you say dinar zav, that's what it means. And therefore, going back to the Mishnah, you could say that when it said in the Mishnah matbeya, it means literally a coin. And then when it says in the Reisha of the Mishnah, kesef, it means literally a piece of silver and a piece of copper, and therefore that's Shmuel's approach in the Mishnah, and there's no raya from the Mishnah to Rav.
Was there any golden dinar without being minted?
No, there isn't. But it's all the question of terminology.
Sure.
It's all a question of what the person is claiming to understand what exactly it is that he's asking for. Tani Rab Chiya l'siyul Rav. So not the Gemara brings here a clear brayse that Rab Chiya taught that proves the point that Rav said, which is that the actual denial has to be two kesef, not only the claim. Because the brayse says, Sela li biyodcha, a person is claiming, you owe me a sela, and he responds, En lecha biyodi ela sela, that you have, yes, I owe you a sela, but then what is he denying? Chaser beis kesef. He's denying the value of two kesef that I don't owe you. Chayiv. So because he denied beis kesef, he'll be chayiv. Chaser ma'a, but if he says, I owe you that sela, but one ma minus one ma, then he'll be potter. The shtei kesef has to be two ma, which ma is a small coin, two silver small coins. So here you clearly see in this brayse that the minimum of the denial to be chayiv for Maida b'miktsas is shtei kesef. The two ma kesef, like Rav said. So therefore, we paskin like Rav, as this brayse clearly says. Okay, now the Gemara brings another thing that clarifies the halacha of the Mishnah. This whole halacha, the Mishnah says that there's a minimum amount to be chayiv for Maida b'miktsas. This is only by the Shavuos of Maida b'miktsas. Amar Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Amar Shmuel. Lo yishanu. This minimum amount was only learned ele b'tainis milve v'haidas malve, that is v'haidas loive. When there's the lender that's claiming amount of money and the borrower is admitting partially to Maida b'miktsas, there's a minimum amount. Avol tainas malve. But if there's a lender that's claiming you owe him money, and v'adas eidechad, and he brings one witness to testify like his claim, which is another case that the Torah says that the borrower will have to swear to pater himself. He has to contradict the words of the eidechad if he wants to be exempt. So in such a case, there's no minimum requirement of amount. Even if the claim was just a pruta and the aid is testifying that he owes this pruta, chayev will be chayev to swear if he wants to pater himself of paying this. My time, what's the reason? Why by Eid Echad is there no minimum amount? Why wouldn't we compare to Maida b'Miktsas, where we see the Torah says Kesef Kelim, there has to be a minimum amount? Because the pasuk says by an Eid Echad, Lo Yakem Eid Echad Bish L'Cholavim L'Chol Chatos. You can't rely on the word of one witness to give a person a punishment for any aveda, or also to be Maitzi Momein. So L'Cholavim and L'Chol Chatos Udeina Kam. You can't use the word of one witness to give a person any punishment, or to be Maitzi Momein, to take out money from someone. But the word of an Eid Echad will obligate the one that he's testifying against. If he wants to pater himself, he would have to swear. Now, V'tanya, in the Braisa we learned about this. In any case where two have the ability to obligate someone to pay money, Eid Echad Mechayiv Shvuah. One Eid is Mechayiv to make a Shvuah. So therefore, two Eidim that testify even about the smallest amount of money, you have to pay. There's no minimum amount that two Eidim would testify about to pay. Whatever it is, you have to pay. The same is also regarding Eid Echad, since it's learned from this pasuk that Yechayev Shvuah, we compare to two Eidim, and it would be whatever amount it is.
Doesn't have to be a pruta?
A pruta, yeah, a shava pruta, yeah. But that's the lowest amount of money. There is, though, a case where two Eidim are Mechayev, and it's not shaykh by Eid Echad, and that's by Karka. That's a rule that the Gemara mentioned already before, and we're going to learn about it later again. That on Karka, regarding a piece of land, there's no din of a shvuah, which is learned from a different pasuk. So that is actually an exception. But regarding any other kind of money or movable item where there is a chiyuv of a shvuah, by Eid Echad, there's no minimum amount. Another halach relating back to what we spoke about before, regarding the fact that by Moed b'Miktsas, the claim and the answer has to be from the same type in order to be chayiv. So if the claim had two types in it, wheat and barley, and he admits to one of these types, chayiv, so then he will be chayiv. In other words, the svar over here is that even though he asked him also for barley and that he's not being maida, he's only being maida in chitim, but the one of the types that was asked from him, that was claimed, he is being maida to, so that's considered to be being maida to the same type. So yeah, because one of the things, chitim, he asked him chitim and sayrim, and he was maida one of them, so I'll be chayiv. Amalei Rabbi Yitzchak, again, chayiv v'shvuah, yeah. Amalei Rabbi Yitzchak yasha. Rabbi Yitzchak said, he confirmed that this is a true statement. And he added, V'chein Amar Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan said this as well, like Shmuel. Now the Gemara says, Rabbi Yitzchak came and quoted this dafke in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Why dafke Rabbi Yochanan? Miklal, the Polig, Alei, Reish Lakish. Is he saying dafke Rabbi Yochanan because Reish Lakish disagreed with this? As we find in Shas many, many times, Reish Lakish argues with Rabbi Yochanan. He was always there learning together with Rabbi Yochanan, and he's repeating that Rabbi Yochanan said this, but so it seems like Reish Lakish argued. So the Gemara says, we don't know if Reish Lakish argued or not. Ikadamni, some say, Misha Havashoyle, that when Rabbi Yochanan said the halacha, Reish Lakish was waiting. He wouldn't respond to Rabbi Yochanan until he finished speaking. So he was waiting. V'shasik, and it was quiet. V'shasik was quiet. And then by the time Reish Lakish wanted to speak, Rabbi Yitzchak had already left. So he didn't hear what Reish Lakish said. Or Ikadam, you others say Mishta v'shasile. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, they were learning, and Reish Lakish drank some water, and he didn't get a v'shasik, and therefore he was quiet. V'shasik. And Rabbi Yitzchak didn't hear what Reish Lakish held about this. So we don't know that Reish Lakish argued. It's not clear. But Rabbi Yochanan did say, like Shmuel on this subject. It says the Gemara, shall we say we have a raya to what Rabbi Yochanan said? Because it says Tane Chitim v'Haydele B'Sayir, and the Mishnah said if he claimed wheat and he only admitted to something else, a completely different type, barley, potter. In such a case, you potter. Now the Mishnah brought, there is a machlekes about this, but Rabbi Gamliel machayev. Rabbi Gamliel says in such a case you would be chayev. Now, what do we see here? Where is the whole argument here? What's the reason why that you would be potter? Is because the only thing that was in the claim was just wheat, and he admitted only to barley. So there's nothing in what he admitted to that is similar to what the claim was. But if there was in the claim there was both wheat and barley, and he admits to one of them, then chayev. Then even the Tanakama would agree that you are chayev. So that proves the point that Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan said. Says the Gemara, it's not necessarily a raya. I can tell you the same halacha would apply. If the claim was both wheat and barley, and he admitted to only one of them, nami potter. you can say that he would be potter. But for high, the kamiflagi bechitim, the reason why the Mishnah brings only this case where the claim was only wheat, and he admitted to only barley, it wants to show you to what extent, how far the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel goes. That Rabbi Gamliel patters, Rabbi Gamliel is mechayev, that is. Rabbi Gamliel is mechayev a shvuah even in this case. Right? And that's the main chiddush the Mishnah wants to show. And as Mefarshim say, when it comes to dine mamanis, by money matters, it's a bigger chiddush to point out the opinion that says chayev than the opinion that says potter. Because chayiv means he would have to make a shvuah, and if he's not going to make a shvuah, you take the money away from him. So chayiv means that you're taking money away from him. That's a bigger chiddush, and therefore the Gemara wants to point out how far the din of Rabbi Gamliel goes to say that you chayiv. Toshama, the Gemara tries to bring an arayah from another part of what we learned in the Mishnah. So this part of the Mishnah is based on the rule that I mentioned before, that there's no shvuah on a piece of land. Whether the denial was on land, whether what he admitted to was on land, there's no shvuah. So the Mishnah now said as follows: Tane Kalim v'karkois. The claim was two things. He claimed that you owe me vessels and a piece of land. Hayde b'kalim. He admitted that he owes the vessels, but v'kafar b'karkois. In the lands, he totally denied. Or the opposite, b'karkois. He admitted he owes the lands, but v'kafar b'kalim. He denied the vessels. Potter. In such a case, he'll be potter, because whether what he admitted to or what he denied is karka, you potter. Then the Mishnah says, another two cases, Hayde b'miktzas karkais. If he denied everything, and the only thing he admitted to is a little bit of the lands that he's asking for, also potter, because the hayda, the only thing that there isn't what he admitted to is karka. Now, b'miktzas kalim, if he was made to miktzas of kalim, then he'll be chayiv. Why in such a case he's going to be chayiv? Because you have now a denial, and what he admitted to is kalim. He denies part of the kalim and admits to part of kalim, so that in itself is mechayev a shvuah of meida b'miktzas. And then the Mishnah goes on to say, once he's chayiv to make a shvuah of meida b'miktzas for the kalim itself, so then you swear also on the karka. And this is what's called gilgul shvuah. Once you swear on what the chiyuv shvuah does apply to, even the karka that usually there is no shvuah for, your megalga, you roll that there's a shvuah on that as well. It drags along, it comes along, and you swear on that as well. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Now, what is the Gemara Medayik here? Going back to the first case of the Mishnah. Taime, the kalim v'karkois. In the first part of the Mishnah, the reason why he's going to be potter is because it's kalim and karkois, and the karka lav bashvuhi. On a piece of land, there's no halacha of a shvuah that applies. Oh, kalim v'kalim dumya the kalim v'karkois. So therefore we can deduce from this, if it would be a claim of one kind of vessel and another kind of vessel, two different types, similar to kalim and karkois, which are two completely different kinds of things. Chayiv, in such a case, if he admits to only one type of kalim and he denies the other kind of kalim, he would be chayiv. So therefore you see in our Mishnah that when the claim is two types and he is admitting to one, he's chayiv, like the case of Tani Chitim Usa Ayrim V'Hayde B'Chitin, he would be chayiv. So it says the Gemara, no, it's not necessarily a rai from the Mishnah. Hu adin, really, the halacha of the Mishnah is the afile, the kalim, nami potter. If it was two different types of kalim that were claimed and he admitted to only one of them, he would be potter as well. So why doesn't the Mishnah give that example? V'hadik tani kalim v'karkois. Why is the Mishnah bringing the example of kalim and karkois? Because Kamash Malon, the Mishnah wants to teach me the din, it wants to teach the Chiddush and the Sefer, that in a case where he admitted to part of the Kalim, so because now there's a denial, and what he admitted to all in Kalim, so Chayev, he'll be Chayev to swear, but not only to swear on the Kalim, but Chayev Afal Karkois. Here there's a chiddush that he swears even on karka, even though usually you do not swear in karka, but once you swear in kalim, then the chiyuv of the shvuah goes in the karka as well. That's the chiddush that this Mishnah wants to say, and therefore brings up the case of karka. Says the Gemara, Maika Mashmalon. What's the chiddush the Mishnah is trying to say by this? Is it the chiddush of zoykikin? The chiddush, that's the word of the Mishnah. Zoykikin means that you connect. What's the word they have? Subjection. Okay, that means that once you swear on kalim, so then you drag along. You connect and pull along that you swear on karka as well. Is that the chiddush that the Mishnah is trying to say here? But the Gemara asks on this, Tanina. There's another Mishnah in Masechta Kedushin that says this already. The Mishnah there says, Zoykikin es anachasim sheyesh lam achrayis lishova alein. That once you're swearing on movable items where the chiyuv of the shvuah originally applies to, so this pulls along as well karka, which is called nechasim sheyesh lam achrayis, properties that is here. There's a responsibility for it. It's not going anywhere. That you have to swear on this as well. So there's a clear Mishnah in Kedushin that says this din. How could you say that our Mishnah is telling me the example of karka to teach me this chiddush? So the Gemara answers, no, ha'ikr. This Mishnah actually is the main place where the Tana is saying this din. This is Masechta Shavuos. And here's where the main place to say this din is. That Mishnah in Kedushin, Agav Grada Nasva. There, it's only being brought Derech Agav. Over there, the Mishnah there is discussing really how you acquire things. Kinyonim. And it speaks about Kinyonim. It brings up a similar thing regarding Shavuot. It speaks over there about the Kinyon of Agav. But here is the main place where the Tana is coming to say this Chiddush. So now the Gemara brings that there is another opinion that argues on this. Rab Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rab Chia bar Abba, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan regarding this halacha, Tanoi chitim usaydim. If the claim was the two types of wheat and barley, and he admitted to only one of them, potter, then he'll be potter, because what he's admitting is not the same min as fully. It's not fully the same min as the claim. Now, so this is quoted also in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara asked, but Rabbi Yitzchak Yasher, Rabbi Yitzchak said that the halacha that Shmuel said that in such a case you would be chayiv. He said this is good, this is true, and he said v'chein amar Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan also said that you would be chayiv in such a case. And here we're quoting in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that you're potter. So the Gemara says, Amirai ninu aliba de Rabbi Yochanan. It's a machlokes Amiraim in the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, now here, after the Gemara brings the fact that there's a machlokes about this case, the Gemara goes through all of the whole discussion, all the rayos that we just brought. The Gemara repeats it all again. So I'm going to go through this a little quicker. So the Gemara Tashama, Tzara the Mishnah Tanichitim Vaidalei B'Sayrim Potter, V'Rav Gamliel Mechayev. So what do you see in the Mishnah time of the Tanichitim Vaidalei B'Sayrim? The reason why the Tanakama says in this case that you would be Potter is because it's chitin and sa'irin, two different types. Chitin is sa'irin v'hidle bechad man. But if the claim had both, and he admitted to one of them, then he would be chayiv. So you see in our Mishnah, like what Shmuel said, says the Gemara, Hu adin da'afil chitin v'sa'irin nami potter. Now even if the claim was both, and he admitted to one of them, you would also be potter. The reason it says the case where the claim was one min, and he admitted to another min, it's only saying this to show how far the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel goes, that even in such a case, you'd be chayiv. Tashema, the Mishnah said, Tani kelim v'karkais v'hoida b'kelim v'kafa b'karkais v'kafa b'kelim potter. In a case where the claim was kelim and karka, and he admitted or denied one of them, he'll be potter, because as long as the denial or what he admitted to is karka, you're going to be potter. Then the Mishnah said, hey, the mixas karka, if part of the denial was karka, or he denied part of the karka, that is, he'll be potter. The mixas kelim, then chayiv. If he was made a mixas kelim, which means that you have a kefira and a haidah in kelim, then it'll be chayiv. So the Gemara is medayik from the ratio of the Mishnah, time of the kelim of the karkais. In the ratio of the Mishnah, the reason you potter is because it's both kelim and karkais. The karka, lav bas shvuhi, because for a karka, there's no shvua. Whether you admit karka, whether you deny karka, there's no shvua. Ha kelim v'kelim dumi the kelim v'karkais. But if it would be all vessels, even different types of vessels, similar to kelim and karkais, chayiv. In such a case, if he admits to one of them, he would be chayiv. This the Gemara answers, "Who adin dafil kelim v'kelim nami potter." No, the truth is, even if it would be two different types of vessels, and he admits to one of them, he would also be potter. Now, why does the Mishnah speak about karka specifically? Because v'ho kamash malon the hoide v'mixas kelim chayiv afak al karkais. The chiddush is in the sefer that in a case where there is a kfira and haidah on kelim, then it'll be chayiv on karka as well. My kamashmul, and what's the chiddush here? Zaykikin, the halacha that you megalgal the shvur, that you connect and you swear on karka as well. Tanina, we learned that in another Mishnah. Zaykikin is anachasim sheshlam achrayis l'shava alei, and that you swear on karka in such a case as well. And the Gemara answers, ha ikir. The Mishnah here is the main place where it teaches this din. Hahi, the Mishnah in Kedushin, agav grada nosva. There, it's only brought agav grada. There, it's speaking about the halachas of kinyanim, and it brings that halacha there. Okay, now here the Gemara brings a new braisa as a raya to this argument. Eisvei, so it says in the braisa, Eisvei Rab Abba bar Mamul, Rab Chia bar Abba, Ta'anoi shor. If the claim was, you owe me an ox, and v'hoidu loy b'seh, and he admits to a different animal, I owe you a seh, a lamb, or seh v'hoidu loy b'shor. He claimed that he owes him a lamb, and he admits that he owes an ox, potter. In such a case, he'll be potter. Now, Ta'anoi b'shor v'seh, if you claimed you have my ox and my lamb, and he admitted to one of them, chayiv, then he'll be chayiv. So this is a clear brayse, like what Shmuel said, that when the claim is two types, and he admits to one of them, he'll be chayiv. So he answered, Hamani Rabbi Gamliel. This brayse is the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel that says that by Moide b'miktzas, it doesn't have to be b'chlal the same type. The Gemara, how could you say this? Rabbi Gamliel, if this brayse is Rabbi Gamliel, then afil reishanami. Even in the first case of the Mishnah, where he claims an ox and he admits to a lamb, which is not the same min at all, should also be chayiv. And in the Reisha it says that in such a case you'll be potter. It says the Gemara, Elohomani admainhi. Who is the Tana of this brayse? It's Admain. And Admain in such a case says you would be chayiv. Admain was brought in our Mishnah regarding a case where the claim was that you owe me jugs of oil. And the person responds, I owe you only the jugs, not the oil. I think that's what the case of the Mishnah was. He responds and says, yeah, I only owe you the jugs and not the oil. So the pshat, in the Mishnah it said that in such a case, Admain said that such a case, in the Mishnah, Admain says that you would be chayiv, and the Chachamim say that you're potter. So the pshat that the Gemara is saying over here is, why does Admain say that you're chayiv? Because when you're claiming jugs of oil, the claim includes two things, the jugs and the oil. And then when you respond, I only owe you the jugs, so you're being mated to one of the types of what was being claimed. In such a case, Admain says you would be chayiv. Just like the case that the Gemara is talking about over here, that the claim was chitim and sa'irim, wheat and barley, and he admitted only to one of these types.
But that's semantic. I mean, that's you could
again?
just it's just using words.
Right. Right. So, but this is the way Admin understands it. This is the Admin says when you're claiming jugs of oil, it means that I want to have the oil and I want to have the jugs as well. And then when he admits to the jugs, he's being made to one of the types that are being asked from him. That's Admin's opinion. The Chachamim argue on this. The Chachamim and the Mishnah say that if he admits only to the jugs, he'll be potter, because the Chachamim say that in such a case, if you are demanding or claiming two types and you admit to only one of them, you would be potter. That's the pshat that the Gemara is explaining now in this machlokes that we had in the Mishnah. Now the Gemara says this, that we're saying that this brayse follows the opinion of Admain. It's not stam, says the Gemara. I'm not just trying to reject this and push off and say that this brayse is Admain. And this was a clear fact that Rabbi Yochanan had taught that that this brayse is only Admain's opinion. But according to the Chachamim, in such a case of Tani Chitin Usa'ayrim, when the claim was two types and he was mated to one of them, you would be potter. That's what the Chachamim argue with Admain in our Mishnah. Another halacha, the Gemara says, Omer Av Onan, Omer Shmuel, Tani Chitim, a person that claims you owe me wheat, and he was about to add that you owe me wheat and barley as well. But now the Kodam, the defendant responds immediately and says, no, I owe you barley. So now, if you look at the case right now, so he claimed one min, and he responded a different min, he should be potter. Mm-hmm. So now, the question, it will depend. If we clearly see that the claimant wanted to claim both wheat and barley, and the defendant realized this, and he jumped very quickly to admit to barley, so that what he admits to should be a different min from what was being claimed from him, and he wanted to pater himself of swearing. So in such a case, he'll be chayiv, because it's clear that the claimant then comes and says afterwards, no, but my claim is both wheat and barley. You just didn't give me a chance to finish my words. So in such a case, he'll be chayiv. But in b'miskavin, if he wasn't jump to try to make this trick to pater himself of a shvua, but he just was coming to say to be made to a different type, and not what was claimed, then pater, then he'll be pater. Another halacha, Ravana said in the name of Shmuel, and this refers back to the minimum amount that there has to be in the halacha of Amayda b'miktzas. If the claim was that you owe me two very little things, two little needles that have a very little value, much less than the shtei kesef, the minimum of the amount of the value of two kesef that the Mishnah spoke about. And he admits, I owe you one of these needles. Chayiv, you will be chayiv, even though there's the minimum amount the Mishnah says has to be the value of shtei kesef, but if it's two kalim, needles, which are kalim, then there's no minimum amount. Because, and he says, Lefichach yatsa kelim l'mashahein. This is the reason why the Torah writes specifically kelim. The pasuk, the Gemara quoted before in Daf Lamed Tes, it says in the pasuk, Kiyitin ishol re'eyu kesef oy kelim. Why does the pasuk that is write the word kelim? It says kesef. Why does it say kelim separately? Kelim is coming to say that if it's vessels, even tiny vessels like needles, there is no minimum amount of value to be chayiv. Right? And Rashi says, if the pasuk would come to say the plural term, that it has to be two kesef, it could have just said ksofim. Then you would know that it has to be two kesef. Why does it say kelim separately? Because it's teaching this halacha regarding kelim, there's no minimum amount, you'll always be chayiv. Amar Rav Papa said, Tanai kelim upruta. If the taina was that you owe kelim, and the person, the claim is you owe him two kelim, and also a pruta, and v'hoide bekelim, he admitted that he owes kelim, but v'kafar bepruta, the pruta he denied, so he only denied an amount of a pruta. In such a case, potter, he'll be potter. The Gemara is going to explain in a second what this is based on. Now, hoide bepruta, but if the amount that he admitted was a pruta, v'kafar bekelim, and what he denied was the kelim that was claimed, in such a case, chayiv. He will be chayiv. So the Gemara explains, chade kerav, one of these statements that Rav Papa says follows a point that Rav said, and the chade k'shmul. And the second point that he said, it goes according to Shmuel. Why? Chade kerav, the first point that Rav Papa said is what is Rav's opinion. What was the first point he said? That when the claim was kelim and a pruta, and he denied only a pruta, and he'll be potter, that's like Rav. Because the Amar Kfiras Taina Shtei Kesef. Rav says when you deny in money, if your denial is money, has to be at least 2 kesef. And over here he denied money, only a pruta. So that point is like what Rav said. And Chadek Shmuel, the second halacha, was like Shmuel. The second halacha, he claimed kelim and pruta, and he denies kelim, and he admits to the pruta. So this is like what Shmuel said. The Amar Tane Chitim Sa'odim, that when the claim includes 2 types, wheat and barley, and the Hoydele Bachasmani, and he admits to one type, he'll be chayiv. So here as well, he claimed 2 different types, kelim and pruta, and he denied kelim, and he admitted to the pruta, and therefore you're going to be chayiv in this case. So therefore this case goes according to Shmuel. Those are the 2 halachas over here. Okay, we'll stop over here. It begins a new Indian over here.